1013, along with any messages or questions that you may have for Ned Darlington, who is now in the studio. Good morning, Ned.
Good morning.
It's great to meet you.
Oh, it's really nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I have listened to you on Uncoded, of course. You are a regular guest there as
Right.
well. So I've been kind of curious to meet you, and thank you for coming on the show and to say hello to our listeners as well.
I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So for our listeners who may not be that familiar with you, could you just say hello first?
Sure. So a brief introduction. I'm Ned Darlington. I'm a guitarist, and I'm actually from England and France. I grew up in France, and I've been traveling a lot in order to learn the guitar as well. And that journey started about 18 years ago.
Wow. So very young.
Yeah, quite young. I was 12 when I started.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you self-teach yourself the guitar, or is it something that you pursued from a very young age, kind of, through school and classical sort of studies?
So I don't have a classical training, which is kind of weird because most of my influence is actually very classical and ancient, like ancient folk music, that kind of thing, which you normally access through the classical world. But actually I had different teachers. I went to Italy to study with an avant-garde composer teacher who is doing experimentations with his instrument, which was the guitar, but also doing sound art, that kind of thing. I also had a teacher from the flamenco world called Adam Del Monte, who also taught me some things, and another few teachers in different genres who were kind enough to teach me some of their secrets.
Wow. It seems like you're very lucky to meet so many different teachers as well. And it seems like you kind of directly traveled to those different countries to meet your teachers and be influenced by the type of or the style of guitar played in that country. Is that right?
Yeah, kind of. I made a thing of sort of writing to people that I found inspiring and contacting them.
And they said, sure, Ned, come over?
Exactly.
Really? You
Yeah.
have to share that letter with us and how you managed to be so persuasive.
Well, it didn't take much. I mean, if you come to someone with a precise idea and you know what you want from them, then usually they're very helpful. They want to help.
Right.
And of course, it's a teaching relationship. So it made sense for them as well.
That's amazing. Were they offering their services for free? No.
No.
Okay,
It wasn't
okay.
that. No.
All right.
I mean, they're working musicians,
Right.
like everyone.
Right. But now your love of guitar and also apparently love of travel has brought you here to Korea, where you are working, you are making music, and you're also working with young students as well, I hear. So are you teaching guitar
That's
yourself
right.
now?
So I have been teaching guitar as well. I also do performance for kids, which is it's English related.
Okay.
But it's kind of it's a funny job where we do kids theater essentially.
Right. Well, I'm sure a lot of kids are not that thrilled about learning English, but when you combine it with guitar, that makes it a little bit more fun for them. So how did you come to Korea anyways? Is it were you in search of a teacher here or a style of music that you picked up or you learned about maybe on your sort of traveling on YouTube, or what did bring you to Korea?
Funnily enough, I didn't know a thing about Korea before I came here. The first reason that I came to Korea was actually love. I fell in love with a Korean, and actually that influenced a lot of my decisions in life because later on, strangely enough, I studied not only music but ceramic arts.
I see. Okay.
Korea was a place that sort of made sense as well.
Very true.
So I came to study some ceramic arts, like traditional mulle, like wheel and traditional wood firing, that kind of thing.
Kilns,
Kilns, that's right.
Yeah.
동가마.
Wow.
And that was one reason. But since then, I've sort of picked up on the music scene in Korea and found that it's constantly moving, constantly changing. And I'm particularly interested in the traditional side.
The traditional side, because guitar is not really necessarily a traditional instrument here in Korea. So when you say the traditional side, are you trying to maybe kind of merge the different styles of traditional like 국악 and the guitar?
That's something that I would love to be able to do. And I think now that collaborations are coming up now with different kinds of musicians, different traditional musicians, bringing the sound of the classical guitar and introducing it in a kind of new way. That's what has always inspired me the most, and that's why I've always pursued different things to find connections between genres.
All right. Well, I think our listeners are probably dying to actually hear you play your music. So you have brought your guitar. That is a sort of a classical guitar that I know nothing about guitars. So if you can maybe introduce very briefly what your guitar is and what you'll be playing for us today.
Sure. So I don't know if I identify as a fingerstyle guitarist.
Okay.
But I use the classical guitar mainly as my main instrument. So classical has nylon strings instead of steel. It's a slightly smaller body as well, and it's acoustic. It's wood.
Okay.
And so the piece I'll be playing now is from my my album, which is called An Old Tale, and this piece is called Motion Overture.
All right. So whenever you're ready, you can begin. Thank you. much, Ned Darlington. That was Motion Overture. We got some messages already. 2742 saying 멋진 기타 연주에 박수 짝짝짝짝. 2653 thank you, Ned, brightening up my gloomy Thursday morning. And 1013 saying, wow, is this live? I'm seeing through the YouTube channel. His finger moves so unbelievable. So thank you very much. I think it perfectly kind of captured the mood, or maybe even like the weather today, because it is kind of gloomy. It's kind of wet and humid, but something about your music kind of livens it up, but it also kind of matches the weather. Did you pick it specifically for the weather?
Well, I knew the weather would be like this.
Yes, of course. And also, and again, I'm no guitar or music expert, but maybe because you mentioned all your influences and how you had traveled abroad and, you know, trying to learn their style of music, I thought kind of a little bit of flamenco influences as well. And you wrote this yourself, right?
Yes, yeah.
So how would you describe this? I mean, Motion Overture is kind of a grand name as well.
Yeah, well, it comes from my childhood. Essentially, this is what I remember of my childhood. I grew up with mountains and streams and stars and cows.
Wow, that sounds magical. In France, you said, right?
In France, that's right, in the mountains in the south of France. And a lot of the different kinds of music that I was drawn to tended to be about things that expressed a certain kind of freedom. And all the techniques that I pursued. So I did study some flamenco music, and as well as other things like tango. And all those things, I try to draw on them and make them find some chemistry inside. And what comes out is, well, this.
I mean, you don't have to necessarily go to those countries and live in the countries and learn from the teachers themselves. I mean, there is YouTube. You can always pick up lots of lessons there. So is that kind of this this nomad maybe spirit in you, or this, you know, constant search for freedom? Is that what led you to go to you are in the embodiment of life abroad, really. So I'm just kind of curious. I mean, did it never kind of occur to you maybe you just should stop and it's maybe just too difficult to continue this?
Maybe just watch YouTube.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I always found that different cultures and different musical cultures have their own way of expressing things. And it's finding those secrets, those expressive secrets, that has always attracted me. The teachers I found in different countries didn't actually represent their tradition necessarily. They were just particular points that I was drawn to. But it did make me feel nomadic. Also because my background, because I feel sort of multicultural. Right. I never felt anchored to one particular culture. So I'm always interested in finding new secrets.
I guess your music also helps for you to adapt to different cultures and different people as well. I mean, obviously, because you grew up in France, I've heard you speak French already. You speak French and English, maybe Korean as well?
I speak some Korean. I speak Italian and Spanish.
Wow, there you go. So multilingual. How has music shaped your life here in Korea? I mean, obviously, Europe, they're different countries, different cultures, but also very, very different from Korea. And I don't know if this is your first time living in Asia. How has music helped you to adapt here? Obviously, your love is here as well, but...
Yeah, it's been interesting, actually. Korea has not been the most fertile kind of soil for me, actually, musically.
Really?
That said, I've found that Korean audiences are extremely welcoming and open. And I think that openness is coming along now in different parts of the music scene. It used to be, I think, an attraction for modern things. What is the next trend? What is the next?
Yes.
And now I'm finding that there is a bit more space for someone like me who is drawing on ancient traditions and trying to modernize them. And I'm finding that Korea is now becoming more open to that. So I'm really grateful, actually.
So how are you meeting Korean audiences? Obviously, you play for little children as well, but for your audience, for your music, do you meet them through offline concerts, or how do you meet your audience, Korean audience here?
I should be doing offline concerts.
Yes.
I was thinking online concerts. Online concerts is something that I've never done, actually.
Really? Even during the pandemic, the past 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I've been focusing on other work. But offline concerts I tend to do in in small venues, intimate venues, I want that intimacy
Yes.
with the audience. And it's tended to be galleries or performing art venues, places of culture, but not necessarily dedicated to big, wide audiences, wide commercial audiences.
How is the Korean audience? I mean, we know that, with pop concerts, we're famous for daechang, super, super passionate and very
yeah.
actively involved. With classical concerts, I've heard sometimes with classical concerts that they could be very, very disciplined as well. They will stifle any cough and whatnot. But with your concerts in a very intimate environment, how is that atmosphere?
The point is that I want to dialogue with the audience, not only in like talking, but for there to be some kind of exchange, and that is what I look for in general. I think as a musician, you need to be in dialogue with the world that surrounds you.
Right.
And for me, I feel most comfortable when it's intimate, and I feel like there can be a kind of rapport with people, and we can laugh together, and it can be like a kind of a much more relaxed atmosphere. And maybe unpopular opinion, but I don't particularly go for the classical. Traditional ethos, which is shh,
Right.
don't talk.
So you encourage them to make sounds and
Yeah.
or to really enjoy your performance. Well, you mentioned that you have a new album out, and that's where you played Motion Overture. That's from your new album. Any upcoming performances, or how can people listen to you? Any upcoming maybe projects? You said you should do some online things as well, so perhaps maybe some online concerts as well?
Well, hopefully, I've got an upcoming concert in Donghae, actually, on the
East Coast?
On the East Coast. That's on the 18th of June. On the 22nd of July, there's one in Seoul, which will be with some a traditional Korean singer and a soundscape artist.
Wow.
And that might be online as well.
Okay.
But apart from that, you can find me on all major platforms where my album has been.
Right. And so it sounds like you will be also kind of collaborating with different genres and maybe even traditional Korean artists as well. Is that something that you might pursue even more in the future?
It's something I would love to do.
Yeah.
I plan to be in Korea semi-nomadically.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
So to be in Korea, but also to travel to other places, and particularly Europe, which is where my home and my other network is.
Right.
And so having that kind of anchoring in Korea with a traditional side,
Right.
that is something that I really hope for in the future.
That would be really exciting for you. And I think as for listeners or fans of your music as well, it'll be very interesting to see how your music evolves and kind of reflects that journey of your life as well. We got another message from 9085 from Busan, because we're also in Busan. 오늘 부산의 날씨는 정말 좋습니다. 날씨에 딱 어울리는 멋진 음악 감사합니다. So gloomy or beautiful weather, it's great and it's perfect for this Thursday morning. So Ned Darlington, thank you very much for joining us once again.
Thank you so much.
Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And that will do it for our first half. Do stay tuned, because we'll be right back with part 2 on Life Abroad.